But, Mark, let's move into a quarterback who we know he's not going anywhere because he was just taken with the number 1 pick in last year's NFL draft, and that is Baker Mayfield, the 23-year-old quarterback last Thursday. Got the win, came in when the Browns were losing. Tyrod Taylor comes out with an injury, much like Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe. Baker Mayfield comes in, leads the Browns back. They get the win 21-17. Baker on the night, 17 of 23 for 201 yards, completed 73.9% of his passes, did not have a touchdown, did not have an INT. But the Browns, most importantly, won the game. So here's the question I'm going to ask you. Browns get their first win in 2 years. Will Baker Mayfield lead this team to the playoffs?
No.
No. All right, next segment.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Watching Baker come out and start playing was awesome. It was great. I don't really know very many people that don't like Baker Mayfield. It's awesome watching him play. It's a lot of fun. He did a great thing, but it's not like he came out there, threw 3 touchdowns, and lit everybody on fire.
Carlos Hyde had himself a game.
Yeah, he
had 3
sure did.
touchdowns of his own.
He sure did.
All the touchdowns. Carlos Hyde.
So to sit here and say, like, is Baker Mayfield going to lead them to the playoffs? It's just a lot of excitement because everyone's like, ooh, they finally won a game. But here's the thing for the Browns. The Cleveland Browns have a great defense. They've got one of the best defenses in the NFL, actually. They also have a strong offense with some good wide receiving weapons. Really, they have one really good wide receiving weapon. And tight ends who should probably be good.
Especially Njoku. I mean, I know he's young, but
he was a very hot prospect coming out of the draft. They also have some pretty good running backs. The thing for the Cleveland Browns simply comes down to this. They still have a bad coach. They play in a difficult division. The conference, the AFC, is weaker than the NFC. But you're going to have to play with the Ravens, who are doing really well. The Cincinnati Bengals, who are surprising people with how well they're doing. The Steelers are going to probably bounce back and do well enough. So it's just a hard road. What I see for the Cleveland Browns is a lot of hard-fought games and a lot of one-possession losses. Not like a lot like they're going to lose 10 games. I actually think that they can probably get to 7, 8 wins. But those losses they have, a lot of them are going to be, they lost by 3, 4, lost by a touchdown. I think they're going to be in it a lot more than not. But Baker Mayfield, don't expect him to go out there and be Patrick Mahomes. Don't expect him to go and be Deshaun Watson last year. Expect him to be good, but he's not going to be the savior right now. Maybe next year. He might be the savior next year, but at the moment, I can't go out there and say it. Man, this gnat.
I know, right?
I actually think I hit it, but I don't know where it went.
Anyways, get rid of that damn thing.
The thing that I want to say, and I want to point this out as I look at an ESPN article, and the headline from Pat McManaman is, I've never seen his name spelt before.
Well, he's got to talk about something now that LeBron's not in Cleveland.
Exactly. The headline is Baker Mayfield upended the Browns' carefully laid out plan. And I sit here and go, this was the number 1 overall pick. There was no plan for him to sit there. Like people who
there was a plan. I think there was.
No. People who sit there and say that he was planned to actually sit for the full year are kidding themselves.
No, I think so.
There's no way anybody realistically thought, and I know that there are, I'm going to really piss off some Browns fans, but I like you guys. But there are people up in that, and John Dorsey and Hugh Jackson are not people who I believe truly have a grip on reality if they're going to sit there and say Baker Mayfield, the number 1 overall pick, the guy we think is absolutely amazing with all this hype behind him, Tyrod Taylor, who's a good quarterback, but is never going to take shots, never going to take risks. This team that has won 1 game in the until this past week,
2 games,
had won Well, I'm saying until
Yeah, I
this
know,
game.
but we could just say has won 2 games.
No, I'm talking at the beginning of the season.
Okay,
at the beginning of the
okay.
season, they had only won 1 game in the past 2 years, and John Dorsey and Hugh Jackson are saying, that kid sits no matter what. There is no way in hell that they legitimately expected that there was no way he was ever going to be there, that Tyrod Taylor was really going to be the starter for the entire season. I cannot believe that anybody of a rational mind actually thought that that would happen. Any fan knew that Baker Mayfield was going to start. Now, that doesn't mean that fans weren't saying, I can see how maybe Tyrod Taylor plays the whole year. I could see how it would happen, but realistically, we all knew it wasn't really going to happen. If they only win 1 or 2 games and they're towards the end of the season, obviously Baker Mayfield was going to play.
Remember me, I was saying, and this wasn't a Baker thing, this was a Hugh Jackson thing. I was on record saying, watch out. He was gone after the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Gone after the first 6 weeks. Todd Haley's head coach. This team is a lot different. But when it comes to Baker, I didn't know for sure. It wasn't like a yes, I know 110% he's not playing this year. But I had a good idea that if Tyrod stayed healthy, that there's a chance that Baker would Patrick Mahomes it and not play last year. Or play the very last game of the year because it's like...
Because that would have been really been
at that
Patrick
point,
Mahomes.
It's like, who cares? Like, it's the last game.
But
I mean...
for the Cleveland Browns, and excusing the good win that they had, for the Cleveland Browns and their 1-31 record that they had coming into this season, the end of the season was going to come like week 6.
I don't know. And this is where you and I differ, where I'm looking at the schedule and this Browns team, you could say if Baker played week 1, that I'll ask you this.
Yeah.
Baker plays week 1. Does he do just, would you put your money on him doing just as good as Tyrod did in that first game?
Oh, just as good as Tyrod? Yes. Yeah.
So, okay. And then in week 2, would you say the same thing, that you could see Baker do? So, because of that, I look at it and go, this team with Tyrod was 0-1-1. Let's be honest. They should be they should have got their first win against the Saints. They should have beat
the Steelers.
Well, they should have beat the Saints, too. Because the Saints, it's not like Tyrod lost them that game.
No.
Their stupid kicker at the time lost them the game. And I know it's really hard for kickers that miss, and I shouldn't call him a stupid kicker, but, I mean, he's the reason they lost.
Yeah, I mean, nobody out there thought that Tyrod was the reason that they lost. Tyrod did just enough. And that's the thing. Tyrod's not a guy who is going to lose you games, but he was also not really a guy who was going to win you games.
But the key thing, and I know it's a small sample size, Baker didn't turn over the football.
Correct.
If that becomes a trend, and much like we saw Dak Prescott 2 years ago, like we're seeing Patrick Mahomes now, if Baker continues that where he's not going to turn over the ball, I could see the Browns potentially. I'm not putting money on it. I'm not saying they will for sure. I could see this Browns team being in a playoff hunt this year. And the reason why I say that is because they should have beat the Saints. If they had a competent kicker, they would have beat the Saints week 2. They should have beat the Steelers, like you said, week 1. The way I see this team is, think back to the 2006-2007 season. Think back to that Chicago Bear team. They got to and I'm not saying Browns Super Bowl here before you chop my head off. They got to the Super Bowl with a phenomenal defense and Rex Grossman just doing okay.
I'm sorry, Rex Grossman unleashing the dragon.
I think Baker could be this year a better version than Rex Grossman, with also that little tendency to unleash the dragon, because he could push it down the field and take those chances. But
throw into double coverage, triple coverage,
defense,
go for it.
I know it's young, but so far through 3 games,
they've been great.
They're like, if they had a lick of an offense, this team would be 3-0. Because this defense has only held opponents to 21, 21, and 17 points.
Yeah.
Like, this defense, as young as they are, are playing out of their minds for Greg Williams. And if I'm on the defense, and you kind of saw this in Hard Knocks, where Greg Williams is like, forget the offense. We're not going to worry about them. We are this unit. Yeah. It seems like Greg Williams has got this defensive unit in the right headspace that they need to be. I think Baker Mayfield could be better than Rex Grossman was in 2006. And this defense can keep teams like Baltimore, like the Chargers. Now, Tampa Bay will be interesting because if Fitzmagic is playing that week,
400 yards.
That'll be interesting because that's a matchup I want to see. If Jameis is playing that week, forget about it. The the Browns defense is just going to run away with that one. The Steeler one, like this defense played really well against Big Ben in Pittsburgh.
Let's see what happens next time.
Like, he doesn't play well at home, or he doesn't play well on the road. I mean,
the next game is the home game, though.
Oh, that's right. The next one is the Pittsburgh
Steelers.
I was looking at the schedule wrong.
Yeah.
So that one will be interesting. But I mean, I see, as of right now, I see 3 wins. I look at Houston. I look at one of the divisional ones. I'm just going to say one divisional game, they will get a W. And then the Raiders this week. So 3. 4 wins for sure at the end of the year for the Browns, give or take. But this defense, as long as it keeps them in games, if that continually goes, like the Saints, we didn't think that the Browns defense was going to keep them. Like, here's the thing with the Browns defense. The last thing I'll say before I kick it back to you. The Buccaneers and the Falcons, the Saints defense, or the Saints offense, I should say, put up 40 and 43 against those teams. Against the Browns defense, only put up 21, and that was at home.
Well, the Browns have a good defense. No one's going to argue against that. And that's what I'm saying. They are, honestly, the Cleveland Browns, because you mentioned the Chicago Bears, the Cleveland Browns are probably in a similar situation that the Chicago Bears fans currently are hoping their team is in.
Really good defense.
Not the 2006 season. Everyone's hoping that that these teams are in the 2005 Chicago Bears season, the year before they got that Super Bowl run, where the team's defense was awesome, lights out, but that offense was not ready yet. That's what both these teams are hoping for. That next year, that offense for the Browns and the Bears take that next step forward, and all of a sudden, you're a Super Bowl contending team. So I don't think there's any reason why the Cleveland Browns can't be in the playoff hunt. But we talk about these close losses. You can make an argument that close losses can be blamed on coaching. And it's not the coordinators. The coordinators and the Browns are doing a very good job.
It's the head coach.
It's always going to come down to the head coach. And they're going to have some games against the Raiders. They can beat the Raiders. The Buccaneers, depending on what Buccaneers team shows up.
And who's a quarterback.
And that's basically what I'm saying is that they can win that one. The Texans are not as hot as they were last year with Deshaun Watson. That's a game that they can probably win. Maybe they can split against the Bengals, who are playing pretty well. Maybe they can split against the Ravens. But all in all, this 1-1-1 team, I see them getting maybe 8-7-1, which is good. I'm not saying that's not good. I mean, Cleveland should throw a parade. They should throw it in already because they finally got a win. But they should throw a parade if they are an 8-7-1 team.
Didn't they throw a parade for
the winless season?
0-16?
Yeah, they sure did. And that one guy was really mad about it. But, you know, that is a great season for the Cleveland Browns because it's a team where the offense is young. It's okay. People get mad at me, but it's okay to have a moral victory sometimes.
Yeah.
That is a good thing.
And the thing I'll look at is, I'll say this. You mentioned that 2005 season for the Bears. All it takes is a win streak because that Bears season, they started off first 4 games, first 5 weeks of the year because they had a week 4 bye. They were 1-4. And if you look at their offensive point total, like if you just look at the scores, 9-7 loss to Washington, 38-6 win over Detroit. The Bengals beat them 24-7. The Browns beat them 20-10. Defense, respectable scores. Like 24 is not a lot of points. That's like a good score that a defense will keep it to. The offense just wasn't scoring points except for that game against Detroit, but Detroit was bad back then. The thing that you look at is from week 6 to week 13, that Bears team just caught fire. Win, over and over and over.
Yeah.
And they were close games, like 13 to 3, 13 to 10, 19-7, 2017, overtime game 19-13, 10-6. The only blowout was 28-3 over my Minnesota Vikings. And that's the thing. If the Browns can catch fire, then they could possibly, because the Bears made the playoffs that year, lost to Carolina in the first round. I don't know if that's the year Carolina went to the Super Bowl and played the Patriots. I'm going to look that up really quick. That would be the 2006.
Sounds like it would be, right?
2006 Super Bowl was, no. The 2006 Super Bowl was the one that we like to forget. The one that was Steelers, the Bill Cowher Super Bowl, the one in Detroit where the Seahawks didn't show up for that game. Yeah, because then the next one was Bears-Colts the next year. So, okay, that was that year where I remember how bad that game was to watch. And then the year before was the T.O. McNabb Super Bowl against the Patriots. Okay, but like I was saying, if this team could catch fire, and right now I feel
they got some stretches in their schedule where they can do it.
This is the stretch you need to catch fire. You already beat the Jets. You got to beat Oakland this week. You got to beat Oakland. Baltimore, that could be a tough one, but you could win that one. The Chargers, they're a team that we saw what happens when they go up against a team that has a really good defense, but that offense for the Rams was phenomenal, and why they won that game against the Chargers too. And plus, like Phillip Rivers says, there were some plays where it was like, oh, if it would have just bounced the other way, we could have won. But that's a game the Browns could be in because of their defense. The Buccaneers, the Steelers, like, I look at the next 5 games and go, if they catch a hot streak for some reason because this defense keeps them in the game and Baker Mayfield catches fire a little bit and doesn't turn over the ball and puts them in opportunities where they can score, you think about it. They win the next, let's say, just for the sake of argument, they win the next 6. They're sitting there, or I'm sorry, the next 5. They're sitting there at 6 wins, 6-1-1, and then after that, it's go back to what I said. Maybe give them 1 over the Bengals. That's 7. The game in Houston, that's 8. We don't know, like, the Chiefs I'm giving for sure loss because of Patrick Mahomes. But then other than that, Carolina's a team they could upset. You've got Atlanta, what kind of an Atlanta team we're going to get against that defense for the Browns.
Yeah.
This could be a year where I don't want to say put your money on the Browns, but
they're going to be a lot closer than they've ever been.
They could catch fire.
Recent history.
And for me, it's not because of, like, Baker helps, but it's that defense. I think this defense is going to keep them in so many games to where they're going to catch fire and win a lot of games, like go on a win streak and, like I said, for example, win the next 5. Or it's going to be like you said, where, wow, the defense kept it really close. They should have got that win against the Chiefs. It was 21-18, and they got the loss.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You got to understand where your team has come from, and you got to understand where your team is going. And your team is going in a great direction. This is an awesome team. This is a good spot to be in right now. Exciting days are ahead for the Cleveland Browns. Maybe you'll get a better coach.
Here's the question I want to ask you to end this about the Browns. I'm putting you in John Dorsey's shoes, per se. Is, let's say Tyrod Taylor comes back healthy before the trade deadline. Do you look to trade him this season? Do you say, you know what? Baker's our guy. There's a team out there that needs a quarterback, and I can get maybe some kind of draft picks for Tyrod Taylor.
Drew Stanton will be my backup quarterback then.
Yeah. Or do you keep Tyrod around because of what he means in that locker room as a veteran presence?
If I can get a good trade for Tyrod Taylor, like a surprisingly good trade, then maybe. But I'm leaning towards no, I want to keep him around because Baker Mayfield, just on the off chance something happens and he gets hurt. I mean, look at Jimmy Garoppolo, look at Deshaun Watson last year, look at Carson Wentz. Good quarterbacks get hurt. It's important to have somebody that you can at least be, who at least won't lose you a game.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section. What do you expect? Mainly, what do you expect from the Browns this year? Because I know the title of this video on YouTube, we're kind of being a little clickbaity here. Hoping that people will be like, what? The Browns aren't going to make the playoffs? And then listen to it anyways. But let us know what you guys think for the Browns this year with Baker being the starter for them moving forward. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section.